This is Kerry Cork. The Australian Parliament has met for the first time following the Christmas break, and the new dynamic was clear. Opinion polls show that the ALP were 54 to 46 in front, perilously close to being outside the margin of statistical error. And if you believe that there are daddy and mummy issues in politics, with the daddy issues being things like security and the economy, owned by the coalition, and mummy issues such as the environment, health and education as being issues owned by Labor, a mummy issue, the environment, is on top of the Australian political agenda for the first time in years. Add that with the new leader still enjoying an electoral honeymoon means that the coalition has a lot of work to do. The battle lines for the year are being drawn, with Kevin Rudd being tagged as a man who is inexperienced. A line from the government that the opposition leader drew inspiration on economic ideas from a Donald Duck comic when Rudd was claimed to have compared the Australian economy as being similar to Brutopia was a cheap but good line. It also emphasised how difficult it will be for the opposition to argue that in an Australia with next to full employment and generally speaking a successful economy is an economically harsh and unforgiving place. The Prime Minister was characterised as being an old man with old ideas, and to that extent he didn't help himself when he fluffed a question on the drought earlier in the week. On the issue of the day, the environment, the issue will ultimately turn on whether electors will prefer an approach on the environment which is empirical, something to be approached on an issue-by-issue basis, which is how the coalition flogs it, or whether the ALP will allow themselves to be tagged as being driven by ideology rather than evidence. Much will turn on whether the government can show that the $10 billion offer to take over the Murray-Darling River scheme has been well thought through, and there are some signs that the idea hasn't necessarily gone through the full cabinet process. If it falls over in detail, the government's claim of careful pragmatism will in turn fall over to its electoral detriment. It'll be interesting to see whether the state premiers also continue to prevaricate or accept the government's offer and yield their constitutional powers to the feds. At a meeting held late in the week, the state premiers declined to immediately sign up to the government's offer. Kevin Rudd injected himself into the gaggle of premiers, holding himself to be the man who would bring the warring parties together, much like the Bob Hawke of the 1970s, who would emerge from the ether and bring down the solution that solved industrial disputes and proposed the compromise that satisfied everybody. It'll be interesting to see whether the electorate sees this sort of behaviour as being the mark of a real leader, or the sign of a blowhard just trying that bit too hard to gain attention and thus lose credibility. The first week of the parliamentary year went to the opposition. This is Kerry Cork.